Welcome to the Pod-Key Summary of Brett Favre. Today's episode is about Brett Favre, and there's really no tidy way to do that without holding a few conflicting things in your head at once. You've got the unlikely rise, the almost absurd toughness, the spectacular highs, the maddening risks, the retirement soap opera, and then the much darker questions about health and accountability after football. He's one of those figures where the football story is huge on its own, and it still doesn't fully contain the legacy. Favre's path to the NFL didn't exactly scream future Hall of Fame quarterback. He got one college scholarship, went to Southern Miss, and started out as the seventh-string quarterback after coming from a high school wishbone offense where he mostly handed the ball off. The turning point was wonderfully simple. A scout saw him uncork a throw that reportedly had smoke and flames coming off it, and suddenly the evaluation changed. Then came the kind of event that would end a lot of careers before they began. In 1990, he was in a nearly fatal car crash, had 30 inches of small intestine removed, and 8 weeks later he was back on the field leading Southern Miss over Alabama. That comeback became an early blueprint for the whole Favre thing. Reckless-seeming resilience, improvisation, and a willingness to play through just about anything. Even getting into the league had a strange, almost accidental quality to it. Atlanta spent a second-round pick on him, even though head coach Jerry Glanville reportedly didn't want him, and Favre threw only 4 passes for the Falcons before Green Bay traded for him. And Green Bay's move wasn't some safe bet either. Doctors reportedly recommended failing his physical because they found avascular necrosis in his hip. So the franchise-changing quarterback era in Green Bay started with a player who barely played in Atlanta and came with a serious medical red flag. Football loves a dramatic origin story, and this one came preloaded. What defined Favre more than anything for a lot of people was availability. He started 297 straight regular season games and 321 if you include the playoffs, a streak that lasted more than 18 seasons. He played through concussions, broken bones, and a whole catalog of shoulder, ankle, thumb, and knee issues, and he said this was the record he valued most. That says a lot about how he saw himself. Not just as talented, but as always there. The wild part is that his durability sat right next to his appetite for risk. He became the first quarterback to top 70,000 passing yards, 10,000 attempts, 6,000 completions, and 500 touchdowns. He also threw an NFL record 336 regular season interceptions. That contrast is basically the Favre experience in one stat line. The same mentality that produced jaw-dropping plays also produced the occasional "why on earth did you throw that" moment, and sometimes several of them. He was also built for cold weather mythology, which in Green Bay helps a lot. His teams went 44-17 in games below 40 degrees. And the Packers put together an NFL record 29 straight home wins, including the playoffs. Inside the division, it got almost weirdly lopsided. He won 11 straight road games in Chicago and went 19-0 at home against Detroit. That's the sort of dominance that stops sounding normal the second you say it out loud. If you want the pure peak, it's the mid-90s. From 1995 through 1997, Favre won 3 straight AP MVP awards, and he's still the only quarterback to do that. In 1996, the Packers led the league in both points scored and points allowed, something only the 1972 Dolphins had done before. And then Green Bay went on to win Super Bowl XXXI. That stretch helped revive a Packers franchise that had been drifting for decades, really since the late 1960s. With Favre, Green Bay got 11 playoff appearances, 7 division titles, 4 NFC title games, and back-to-back Super Bowl trips. So on one level, the legacy is straightforward. He changed the franchise and gave it a modern identity. But even at the top, the contradictions never really left. Super Bowl XXXII turned out to be his final Super Bowl, and the Packers lost 31-24 to Denver despite being favored by 11. By retirement, Favre had led the NFL in completions, attempts, yards, touchdowns, and quarterback wins. He also owned the career interception record. He became a foundational example of the high-risk, high-reward quarterback, long before that style became more familiar and more openly debated. Then there's the retirement story, which really became its own genre. Between 2006 and 2010, Favre kept retiring and returning in a way that was exhausting, fascinating, and impossible to ignore if you followed the NFL at the time. In 2008, he said he didn't want to play anymore, then wanted back in, then publicly criticized Green Bay's front office, and eventually got traded to the Jets before landing with the Vikings. A lot of this came down to timing, trust, and the fact that the Packers had to decide whether they were still living in Favre's timeline or moving on to Aaron Rodgers. Green Bay chose Rodgers, and Favre's attempted return blew up whatever trust remained. There were accusations of pressure and dishonesty, tampering allegations involving Minnesota, and even a reported $20 million marketing proposal meant to keep him retired. Which is one of those sports details that sounds made up. But no, that was part of the atmosphere around this. And the reason teams kept reopening the door is that Favre could still make the argument feel reasonable. His 2009 season in Minnesota was excellent. 4,202 yards, 33 touchdowns, only 7 interceptions, a 12-4 record, and a trip to the NFC Championship game. He also became the first quarterback to beat all 32 NFL franchises. So even when the saga felt messy and overlong, the football side kept saying, well, hang on, he can still do this. The later chapters get heavier, and they should. During his playing career, Favre dealt with serious substance and health issues, including a Vicodin addiction that led to a potentially fatal seizure and 46 days in rehab in 1996. Later, there were reports of memory loss and multiple concussions. And in 2021, he said, parents shouldn't let children play tackle football before age 14. His final NFL appearance came after a concussion in December 2010, which ended the consecutive start streak. He later said he worried that his cognitive lapses might reflect chronic traumatic encephalopathy rather than ordinary aging. Then, in September 2024, he disclosed to Congress that he had been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. That part of the story lands differently because it connects the myth of toughness to the actual cost of it. And separate from the health questions, his reputation after football has been deeply damaged by the Mississippi Welfare Fund scandal. Investigations allege that at least $8 million meant for welfare programs went to Favre or causes he supported. That included $1.1 million for speaking appearances he did not make, a proposed $5 million volleyball facility at Southern Miss, and $2 million invested in a biotech venture. Favre denied wrongdoing, repaid $600,000 of the speaking fee money, and remained involved in ongoing civil litigation. So when people talk about his legacy now, it's not just a matter of balancing touchdowns against interceptions or toughness against recklessness. It also means facing serious questions about judgment, responsibility, and what kind of public figure he became after the cheering stopped. Brett Favre's story is enormous, but it never stays simple for long. It's part football legend, part warning label, and part unresolved argument about how we remember greatness when the rest of the record keeps talking. This episode was generated by Podkey. Create your own at podkey.fm.